Thank you so much. I am so excited to be back here. It feels like it's been a long time. So, today we were here, but I am excited to talk to you about like what's changed. So, we're gonna talk emoji. Uh, okay, so let's first talk. I think since I last talked, I was not the chair when I was last saw all of you, and in that time, Mark has stepped down, and those are very big shoes to fill. And I think when he first asked me to become the chair, I said no. I said, you keep the job and I'll keep doing what I'm doing. And we talked a little bit more, and I'm glad that we made it work because it's an amazing project. And I get to work with a lot of amazing people, many who are here, and I want to acknowledge them. So there's Camille, who's in the front, and Rick in the front, and we got Sam in the back, and we got Jenny. Is there anyone else here? I think that's not a bad turnout. Okay, pretty good. But a lot of the work that I'm talking about here is the effort of so many other people, and I am just so glad that I can share this with them and talk to you guys about what it is we do, which includes, I don't know, the technical implementation of character encodings, yes, but also the strategy and guidelines for new proposals, how we align across different company lines, both in terms of the technical aspect, but also design, and how we're trying to meet the demand of digital communication needs by improving the process and proposals. So the emoji subcommittee has been super busy since it became part of the standard. Unicode went from about 700 emoji to 3,633 as of Unicode 14.0. So I became the chair in 2019, where you can see that green slope going down. We are encoding less emoji. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's a really important trend line. So we've learned a lot in the past 10 years of encoding, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've learned about how people use emoji, because honestly, it's my favorite part. So I am a student of Gretchen McCulloch. I really do believe in embracing the differences and the similarities between talking and writing. They are very different, but as even Gretchen mentioned in her keynote, there are mechanical similarities, right? You text the way you write, but we actually text a lot more like how we talk, right? If you think about texting, it's loose, it's telegraphic, you don't think about capitalization when you're talking, and you don't think about capitalization when you're texting. And really one way to think about it is that we text the way we talk. And we are texting a lot, and we're using emoji a lot. So 92% of the world's online population use emoji, and one of the beautiful things about emoji is that they're not a language. Not a language. They are instead alongside language, and that allows everyone to use them, right? Because learning a language is hard, right? If emoji was a language, it would have very low adoption. But because you can use it with something that you feel confident, familiar using, it's easier to use. So we're going to talk a little bit about how they're used, right? So they provide a wide range of function. Sometimes it's punctuation and nuance, but also, well, let's just go through it. Here are like 5 or 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ways people use emoji, right? Okay, so the most common one that's cited is as punctuation. So let's say someone just texted you and you're like, oh, that is so crazy. But like, you can't just say that's so crazy, right? You have to add something, exclamation point, a period, or an emoji. So you say a shocked face, so they can understand that you were truly shook, right? Another way is the volume. Let's say they told you something that was more than just shocking, right? So you add a couple extra shock faces. So that gives them some sense that this is actually you're not just shocked, you need to know more. Tell me more. I am on the edge of my seat, right? Another way, which is much harder to input in your phones currently, but is commonly used in less synchronous communications like comments on TikTok, is when people insert emojis between words. So if you think about how this is done pre-emoji, sometimes people will clap between their words to make a point. Are you listening to me? But in emoji form, you might do something like when dog face, are dog face, you dog face, coming dog face, home dog face, to elicit the voice of a little puppy who really, really, really wants you to come home and can't wait to see it, right? So what we're seeing here now is that we've gone from punctuation, volume, and now persona. Then there's the emotional overload, overload. And what you see with these kinds of texts are copy pastas. So if you're not familiar with copy pastas, it looks like a whole mess of seemingly random emoji, but actually there's a true artistry to making a copy pasta. What you really want to do is get that right emoji that doesn't repeat the word, but instead subverts it in some way. And so that's a way to use emoji that is deeply overloading. And then the fifth way is for emphasis, right? So similar to volume or punctuation, what you're trying to do is convey intent, tone of voice, volume. But you don't want to say happy birthday, clown face, clown face, clown face, because that does not seem very happy. Not everyone likes clowns, and that actually does not seem to evoke the spirit of a birthday. So what you'll do is you'll assign other similar concepts next to it. So it'll be clown face, birthday cake, party popper, balloon. What else we got? We got more cake, right? So there's a number of different emojis that as a collection convey the vibes of saying happy birthday. Now what all five of those have in common is they're used alongside text, right? 80% of the time emoji are used. They're used alongside text. Now the 20% that they're used not with text, presumably as a reaction to something, right? So someone's texted you something, you don't really have anything to say, you want to acknowledge it, you want them to understand how you felt when you heard it, so you'll send back an emoji, or maybe 3, so that they understand how you feel. Now, emoji have really transcended the initial intent of working in the messaging space. People use emoji anywhere there's a cursor, right? So they put them in their bios on TikTok, they put them in the comments on Instagram, they use them in tweets. They are anywhere that they can render. Emoji really have become part of culture. Because, and this is one of the brilliant parts of emoji, they can just be copied and pasted somewhere else without any editing software, right? You just copy it and paste it. Nothing's required, and it just works. And because of that, a meme is born every minute, right? We can see all kinds of lovely creations that people are able to just copy that from someone else, paste it, and then slightly modify it, and then send it. One of my favorites is You Want This Bunny? I'm not sure if you're familiar with You Want This Bunny, but it started off with the first one right here. So it's a little bunny holding a heart. They're offering it to you, and they say, do you want this? But then they take it back, and they say, give me your birth time, right? So this is about horoscopes. And what I love about that initial meme is then it became something about Beyonce, to becoming another way of expressing your admiration and love, and then just 2 bunnies playing football. Right? So people are able to take it, tell a story, whether it makes sense or not, and just play with language in a way they don't normally do when they're talking. Oops, did I go forwards or backwards? Here we go, right? Okay, so while 80% of emojis are shared alongside words, sorry, I keep going with the microphone, here we go. You could also see that 80% of communication is nonverbal. And though we go through life mostly unaware of it, humans mimic each other's faces and expressions and emotions when we're talking person to person. This is an emotional contagion, right? It's a big part of how we build empathy, how we nurture and show and build relationships. So while emoji are not a universal language, we do tend to use emoji very similarly. So looking at this list, it's pretty clear that emoji offer something in common for everyone, which is positivity, right? All these emojis have some positive aspect to them. Now you might say, aha, but Jennifer, what about number 6? That emoji clearly is sad. Well, I would say, aha, that emoji is also commonly used to say, I'm so proud of you, I am overwhelmed with emotions. So this emoji is pretty ambidextrous in its use, depending on the context it's being shared or who it's being shared with. So this is, we just want to be loved. That's all we want. We want you to know we love you, and we want to be loved. So while the popularity of many of these emoji are common across different languages, it's really interesting to look at emoji that are most uniquely used in certain languages over others. So for example, Italian and Russian speakers, they tend to throw each other kisses, that little lipstick mark, more frequently than speakers of other languages. Whereas in English, we prefer the more platonic winky face throwing a heart kind of abstraction. It's less lusty, right? Speakers of, let's see what else we have. We have the rose is most common, almost uniquely sent in Hindi. A number of folks really like sending emojis with sunglasses. Now, when we think about how people look at emojis, you could just presume that we're all seeing the same thing, but actually, we use emoticons differently, and we do use emojis slightly differently as well. And one thing that I've been thinking about, particularly with emoticons, is that Western users tend to use that top example, right? Colon, paren, colon, P, colon, D. And the expression is the focus on the mouth shape. Right? The eyes kind of stay the same, but the mouth shape changes to give you a wider range of expression. Whereas vertical emoticons, which are mostly employed by Eastern culture, would have a focus on eye expression, and they're read this way. And so you can tell that the person's crying, or they're happy, or they feel nothing. And so one possible explanation of this is that Western Caucasian fixation is more evenly distributed, including mouths. And then East Asian fixation tends to be on the upper middle part, though I will admit, now that I'm wearing my mask more, I try to smile with my eyes as much as I can that I previously did before COVID. So even though we might be staring at the exact same emoji, we might be interpreting them slightly differently, right? So when I look at this emoji, I don't trust it, okay? This is not someone that this person's humoring me at best, and I will be looking at them with a beady little eye to make sure I really understand what they're saying. And that's not terribly fair. It's just an innocent smile. This emoji probably means me no ill will, but when I look at it, I don't like what I'm seeing, right? Now, there's no study that has actually been done about that particular emoji. It's just my personal vibe. Now, there have been some studies that have looked at, for example, face screaming in fear, and they found that this emoji tracked as, yes, fear among older generations, but more as surprise for younger generations. What's next? Okay, face with rolling eyes is interesting. People who identified as female rated it as an angry expression, and people who identified as male considered it more neutral. What I love about this finding is it verifies that some people just lack the ability to read the room, right? You have to know. While we normally don't think of emoji as a place for artistic creativity, like art and music, individuals and communities of the world are injecting meaning into emoji in seemingly meaningless ways. I love this example. So this is clearly elephant shoe. Okay, what does that mean? What is that possible? You could try to interpret it. You're like, elephant plus shoe. So what it means is if you mouth the words elephant shoe, but don't say the words, it looks like I'm saying I love you, right? So I have a friend who sends elephant shoe to his wife because hearts are so passé, and hearts anyone can send, but elephant shoe, only Damien and Kim know what elephant shoe means. And that makes them feel closer and more loved and more seen by each other. I have a friend who's a fairly new parent, and he will text me just this emoji, the second place emoji, when he's at a playground and his daughter has fallen off the slide, or he has done something he probably shouldn't have done as a father. I use the cactus emoji when I'm on my period. And my friend Matt uses this combination of eye to eye instead of thumbs up, right? He just wants you to know that we're good. I got this from here. Okay, let's move on. Eye to eye, right? So it took me a second, but when I got it, I was like, okay, cool, I get it. So this is another, so we have a person cartwheeling into a dark hole, which is so good. My friend Julia uses this when she's having a nervous breakdown. So when I get this, I give her a call and ask her if she's okay. And this is just slang and jargon. These aren't frequently used emoji that are paired together. These are private and personal word creations, which are often found in social groups and households that really never make it to the dictionary, right? Your pet names or your nicknames for people that you care about. So as much as I love these really cute idiosyncratic examples, most of the most popular non-repeating emojis are things like this: hard eyes and kissy face throwing a heart. We got another kissy face plus a heart, and we got hard eyes plus heart. You get the idea, right? They're all emphasizing the same concept by using a similar emoji next to each other. It's sweet, but speaking of frequency, I would love to talk about how we deal with frequency. Excuse me. How we think about it, and how the emoji subcommittee tries to operate at the speed of language online. Because language is dynamic, it's fluid, it's personal, and keep in mind, when we're talking about written language, it took millennia for written language, which really just started off as a way to like track how many ox you had, or like, you know, taxes, to a full-fledged writing system that you could write poetry with. It took millennia. Emoji had been around for 30 years. And we have gone from literal representations of folks to things that you could argue are poetic. And it's quite remarkable that emoji have been able to operate at that speed of language online. So we're going to talk about how, because I think it's largely due to the Unicode standards criteria for inclusion. So we're going to talk about why they exist, how we evaluate proposals, and the first one up is frequency of use. Okay, so ideally, a proposal is not inventing something new. It's something that already exists. It's something that you can find in literature, in movies, in comics, in manga, anywhere. It already exists in the world in some way. And the more empirical evidence there is to point to its frequency, the more we can understand how it's currently being used and don't have to predict the future. So we're gonna play a little game, all right? Oh, before we play the game, here, emoji are commonly grouped into 8 categories. We got smileys, we got animals, we got food, we got travel, activities, objects, symbols, and flags. Okay. We're gonna guess what the most popular emoji is in the nature category. So these are all the emojis that are in the nature category. If you know the answer to this, keep it to yourself, don't ruin my fun. But if you don't know it and you think you know it, please shout out what you think is the most popular, most frequently used animal and nature emoji. Sparkle, I heard a sparkle. Who else? Which way? We'll do a couple. What I hear? Pig, so cute. Rose, good guess. These are great guesses, right? The answer is fire, right? So fire emoji, really interesting. So let's talk about why we think it's fire. Fire, yeah, sure, it could literally represent the fires in California, but I don't think that's what people are using it for in the most frequent way, right? They're using it to say something spicy. They're using it to say that you look hot. And when you're telling someone that they look hot, you can't just send one fire emoji. You gotta send 3 or 5. So when you look at the most popular used emoji per category, they also seem to have a pattern, which is that they all have multiple meanings. They don't literally represent themselves. For objects, it's a crown. We're not talking about the Queen of England. We are saying that you're the queen, that you're the boss, that you rule, right? When we're talking about body parts, right? It's the folded hands. Don't let anyone tell you that it can't be high five. If you want it to be high five, it can be high five. To understand how people use emoji and to understand the criteria for their inclusion is really important. And so the next one will be multiple uses. And the reason why understanding these criteria is particularly important, which I should have mentioned at the beginning, is that once an emoji is added, it is never removed. It's always there. You can't get rid of it. So we really try to keep the standard high. So let's talk about multiple uses. What does that mean? Effectively, I'm just saying, can it be used for something outside of representing itself? So a good example, oops, going backwards now, is pig. Someone mentioned pig, super cute. Really love the pig emoji, right? You can, yes, talk about pigs, like I saw a pig today. Pig emoji. Or, you know, you could talk about the zodiac sign, right? Or the zodiac, you know, the year of the pig. It's the year of the pig. You could talk about that you really like to eat pork and that you can't wait to have some bacon. Or perhaps you are as hungry as a pig, as in you want to eat all the churros, right? Those look so delicious. I can't wait to have them. But of course, you know, you gotta watch out for the fuzz. So here's one emoji, but with many, many different meanings and connotations. Hand with index finger and thumb crossed is an excellent example of how we're prioritizing emoji that are both globally relevant without having to mean the same thing to everyone, right? So for those who are unfamiliar with this gesture, in certain parts of the world, most popularized in Korea, this is known as finger heart. And it's known as finger heart because if you look at the fingertips of your fingers, it looks a little bit like a heart. Right? So you'll throw this sign as an expression of love and admiration and just general positivity, right? So you can say, you are truly amazing, finger heart, and you know, throw in some hearts to really emphasize that. Or you could say, oh, the world's tiniest violin. I have no sympathy for you at all. Or maybe it's a gesture of money, as in like, that's just too fancy, can't go there, but thank you anyways. And lastly, it's a snap, right? You can't do motion in emoji, you gotta pick one. So we have, again, one emoji and many different uses for how people already do this gesture that are now, you now are afforded it. You have the affordance in your emoji library. Okay, the third criteria is use in sequences. So what does that mean? When we say sequences, what we just mean is, can it be used with other emoji to mean something new, right? Emoji really, they're really more like building blocks than images onto themselves, right? Language is powerful because there's a finite number of glyphs that can just do it all. Emoji aren't a substitute for language as much as they are there to supplement it, because many of the new emoji that we've just encoded for emoji 14.0 are intended to be used alongside other emoji that can build up meaningful concepts when combined, right? There's no need to propose a mic drop emoji, because now we have a palm down emoji that you can pair with the microphone emoji, and you can have the final word in the group chat, right? Or we have the palm up emoji, who is throwing you a hot potato, right? So we have a gesture that can be used alongside other emoji to mean lots of different things. And you see people already using emoji in this way, right? Emoji are no exception to memes. And so we have it is what it is. And the very, very popular shy guy. I don't know, shy person, shy smiley. And it's just a face, the pleading face, with two fingers next to it. And it's a great example of how emoji can operate as building blocks. And they are so powerful when they're not specific concepts, because then they can be versatile and fluid and just generally more useful. All right, so a fourth criteria for inclusion is breaking new ground. This means that it can demonstrate how it represents a collection or a group or a family instead of a very specific thing. So like beer, right? We have beer emoji. Now, I get it, like I like Guinness as well. And this isn't specifically Guinness, but the beer emoji isn't supposed to be any specific emoji, but just represent the concept of beer. And it's best when you lean into features that are prototypical of a concept, right? So for beer, it's just a beer. I wasn't around when it was added, but when T-Rex became an emoji, the dinosaur enthusiasts they seemed somewhat pleased, but then they rose up and spoke out for the pterodactyl representation as well, right? So when you add one emoji, they are always thinking, well, what next? What can we add in addition to it? All right, so what's the fifth criteria? We got distinctiveness. So it seems obvious, but you'd be surprised what kind of proposals we do review. If you can't tell what it is, it's not going to become an emoji, right? It has to be distinctive at emoji sizes. So I try to do when reviewing proposals, if I don't like the image, I'll do some sketches to be like, okay, does this have potential? Can we change the design in some meaningful way? But some concepts just, they aren't iconic enough. So like there was we have, I don't have to go into it. Like they're basically, you have to squint too much. So this is all just to say, if you can't tell what the picture is, you're gonna have to take another stab at it. It has to be sufficiently recognizable. The last criteria for inclusion, which really brings us to the roots of why Unicode even does emoji, is compatibility, right? Is this emoji needed to be used with popular existing systems? And while this isn't a common criteria that is checked these days, sometimes it does come up. And so in emoji 14.0, we do have the inclusion of a face, or I guess it's called, face with hand over mouth is the existing emoji. But this is how it's represented across different font ecosystems, right? Can you play the game where you can tell which one of these doesn't belong? Right? So one of these emoji doesn't look like the rest, and it can cause a problem, right? So when you are responding, right, this is an example of using an emoji as a reaction to something, and you're saying you're surprised by it, but other people think you're laughing at it, seems like a problem. Jamila Jamil, who's an actress, later deleted this tweet because she was horrified to learn that emojis render differently. So what is a subcommittee to do, right? So we looked at it and we were like, this seems like a problem. So how can we fix it? No one wants to be misunderstood. So we can't just add it. We have to actually make sure that this addition has a valuable contribution to the existing inventory. So we looked, we're like, okay, so how are different ways that people convey, how people cover their face? And what we found is that there were two distinct expressions. They weren't variations of the same concept. The top row is clearly shocked, and the bottom row is clearly laughing. And this gave us some pretty good evidence that we could move forward, that it was a valuable addition and not merely encoding a variation of an existing thing. Okay, so now, with the addition of face with open eyes and hand over mouth. This will land on phones later this year, and next year we have 2 distinct emoji, one for lightly giggling, which I love. I'm very excited. I don't need to be rolling on the floor laughing all the time. I just need a lightly giggling, as well as a modest shocked emoji. Okay, so those were all the deal makers, but we also have some deal breakers, right? So what we're really looking for is, does this emoji represent something that's already representable? As we very rapidly approach almost 4,000 emoji, it's kind of a tall order, right? Subcommittee is really keen to ensure that new additions aren't merely variations of existing concepts. Proposals really need to demonstrate how a concept cannot be represented with another emoji or sequence, even if the image is not exactly the same in the one in the proposal. And that's the one that catches people a little bit. Right? Like dog. It's just supposed to be dog. It's not supposed to be your dog, my dog. It's just supposed to be the idea of dog. And you have to pick one when you're encoding it, right? You can't just tell someone to close their eyes and picture a dog. You actually have to design it. So most vendors went to a mutt, because a mutt's like a blend of lots of different dogs, right? It's like not very specific. So adding huskies and golden retrievers or German short hair pointers or even balloon dogs, right? These would all be overly specific in the world of dog breeds. A very limited number of emoji can be added each year. Thus, emoji that break new ground are strongly favored over emoji that are merely variants of existing ones. So like I said, we are at 3,633, I think, 63, something like that. And so new additions really are at risk of creating expectations that are far too open-ended. So if this emoji is added, will it result in the need to add others of similar types? So proposers are really encouraged to justify why this emoji is not just one of many and has no special reason to favor it over others of a similar type. Okay, another criteria for exclusion is open-ended. What does open-ended mean? What we really just mean is that are other emoji, like the T-Rex, are people going to then say, we want to have these 5 other dinosaurs because you added this other dinosaur? There needs to be a reason why this and not that. So a good example of that is the salute face. So this was a proposal that successfully addressed feedback that it was too open-ended, because the salute can be, well, you can do it a number of different ways, right? So we got a salute that's palm down, we got a salute that's palm out, we got a salute that's palm out but slightly different on the face, and these are all done in different parts of the world. So how can we add in good conscience a salute emoji if we think we're going to anticipate other requests for other types of salutes, right? So how do we design? We could pick one over the other. We could say, you know what, this is the most popular salute in the world. The most amount of people will look at it and say, that's how I salute, so let's go with the majority, right? Or you could be like, yeah, you could pick another one. You're like, well, this is the second most popular. It's reasonable, salute-ish. And then we have the third option. And you're like, what if we pick the one that the least amount of people use, and because they aren't represented in the standard, right? So as a designer, what do you choose? How do you pick one person over the other? And as a mother, I decide not to choose anybody. I just say, you're all going to be unhappy. Instead, what we do is we pick A, B, and C, right? We say, we're not going to do palm up. We're not going to do palm down. We're going to do palm 3/4. And what that does is it allows someone to look at it and go, well, that's sort of my salute, not exactly, and that's sort of my salute too, not exactly, so that you don't have to add more salute types. Effectively, we're just generalizing it, and so we don't have to pick one culture over another. Third criteria for exclusion is faulty comparison. Okay, this is a classic, like a Twitter emoji meme where they're just like, how can there be 3 calendar emojis, but we don't have my neck massage emoji, right? They're like, we have a snowman with snowflakes and a snowman with no snowflakes. I demand my nose piercing emoji. So I mean, I understand there's a lot of clocks. I actually think they're pretty cute, but I understand I'm in the minority there, but that's not really the point. The point is that many emoji were added for compatibility, and they would not have been added otherwise, right? Japan really loved their trains, so we got a lot of trains on our phones right now, but their existence does not justify proposals of emoji like them. So we do have this emoji, but it does not justify adding an emoji for old, or tiger face and tiger, but that does not justify additional views of other animals. Different. Your favorite more important than a mailbox, and et cetera, et cetera. So next is transient. Effectively, this means that proposals need to demonstrate that their particular concept has been used communicatively over a sustained period of time. As an example, smile with tear with a proposal that notes that this is a phenomenon that has been traced back in, I feel like, can you guys see me going in and out, or is that tripping you up as much as it's tripping me out? It sounds like I'm getting censored, right? Thank you. Yeah, let's try it. Sounds good? Cool. Love it. Thank you, Cody. Okay, so we were talking about Homer and Odysseus. Okay, so we weren't really, but we were about to. So smile with tear can be traced back, as it's mentioned in literature, as far back as when Odysseus comes home and sees his kids for the first time. It's in the literature that he cries from happiness, right? It's also, in contemporary TV shows, in The Office or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? So this is not a transient concept. This is an expression that can be traced for a very long time. It still remains contemporary. It is not a fad. It is not transient, and it's now an emoji. So if you're writing a proposal, think less about emojifying a meme, right? And I encourage everyone just to be playful with the existing emoji, because soon we'll have a "is this a meme" emoji without literally having to add a "is this a meme" emoji. You just pair face palm next to a butterfly. The next criteria is already representable. Can this concept be represented by another emoji or sequence, even if the image is not exactly the same? That's right from the emoji proposal website. And I get it. You're just like, we need a face washing emoji. But do we? We have soap, we have water, we have hands, we have the ingredients. You can go wash your hands digitally. Thank you. A squirrel can, reasonably be interpreted as a chipmunk. And, I know we have all been vaccinated. You had to be vaccinated to be here. We don't have so much need a vaccination emoji as we have a muscle arm and a Band-Aid and potentially any number of hearts that you can append with it to say that you have been vaccinated. Same with COVID, right? This sequence of emoji became rather popular at the start of COVID with Spanish speakers because corona is the Spanish word for crown. So do we really need an emoji for social distancing as much as we need to understand how you feel about social distancing? Are you stuck at home for the 80th week and you're feeling chill? You're at peace with it? Are you stuck at home for the 80th week and you are super over it? You are done? You want to go outside? Are you stuck at home for the 80th week and you are self-medicating? Are you stuck at home for the 80th week and you feel nothing? Right? When there are as many foods as there are ingredients on the planet and a variety of objects that are only limited by your imagination, every addition to the emoji palette is at risk of creating zones of exclusion without consciously trying. So the best we can do is ensure emoji continue to be as broad, as flexible, and as fluid as possible, just like language and just like us. So our primary goal is to reconcile the rapid, transient nature of communication with a very formal, methodical process of a standards body like Unicode. And we do this by focusing on globally relevant communicative concepts, and this requires prioritizing inclusion and representation in a different way that you might expect. Because rather than focusing on how we look, we lean into how we communicate as human beings. Plain text leaves a lot to be desired in digital communication, and immediacy can kind of leave nuance by the wayside. So additions like the invisible face or hug, these are fundamental human expressions or sentiments, and they're practiced worldwide. And understanding how people express and control their emotions is really important, and it's related to our mental and physical health. I think I have 10 minutes left, but I really want to do Q&A, so I think I might just end it there. 7 minutes? I think we should do that. I'll be able to sit on this slide and let you guess what I was going to say about it. Happy to talk more if you'd like me to continue talking, or if you guys want to do, just see if there's a Q&A. I just feel like we're all here in person, we might as well talk. Yes, thank you for raising your hand.
Apologize if I get long-winded. You touched on this. I see we're on the verge of being able to have people create their own emoji fonts. It's been tempered a little bit by the fact that people that implement them don't mix color technologies, color font technologies, so interchange of fonts and font files themselves is very difficult. But I think it won't be long that we will surpass that, because Peter and Rod talked about the color V1 format. Could very possibly be the thing that makes color font technology interchangeable. In fact, just from my point of view as a font developer, I think that's the only thing that's going to go forward, is an interchangeable font. So, with the issues of sort of styling, and again, you kind of got to this with the hand over mouth and different implementations of that. And there's also the one with the gun, Apple's squirt gun versus some other kind of gun. How do you see things playing out when people are able to make their own style emojis and exchange those fonts, or not exchange the fonts? Worse, possibly. So if I want to have, I want to make an emoji font with all of the human-ish forms are steampunk style, and I want to send that to my friend. It could definitely, it will give a completely different style and emotion to my message. How's that going to work?
Yeah, I think we're already there. I mean, I know that this is the wrong audience, we're character encoders, but I actually think we're moving towards an era where it's about standardizing how images are shared and received. So it's not about creating your own emoji font. It's being able to, like we do it in Discord, right? Here's a good example of it. I asked Twitter, send me your favorite Discord emotes. And my friend Eric sent me the one on the left, which really is just old Docomo emoji, right? It's super stylized, to your point. And it interoperates fine because Slack is a closed ecosystem. They don't have to worry about how it translates, and it doesn't need to map to a universal character encoding, right? And the one on the right, someone was like, well, here are all my Discord custom emotes, and they move, and they dance, and they're weird, and I don't even know how many they really use, but when they look at them, they see themselves reflected back. And so I really do think when we think about the future of emoji, it's less about the future of character encoding of emoji and more just about how text and images work together that is beyond treating the keyboard like a typewriter and treating images like art. They are blended. They don't have to be separate, but mechanically they are right now. So while, I think taking on, the average person doesn't know how to make a font. I didn't before I worked on emoji. It's not very accessible, but what is uploading an image. And so when we think about the health of the internet, how do we make sure that's accessible? How do we make sure that scales? How does that work on a platform level? These are things that people need to come together and say, actually, we want to decentralize the ability to send and receive images. How they render, how they are sized, how they're, and even the distribution of them as well. So I am fully in font camp. I love Color V1. I think we should do Color V1. I want to continue making emoji, but I also think a parallel effort to standardize how images are shared and received is going to be increasingly more important as people want to have transient, hyper-specific concepts in their chat rooms. In fact, this is a great chart from Slack. So the majority of emotes shared in Slack are smileys by twice as much, but the second most is custom emotes, and that's where the most growth is. right? That's where people put in their nicknames, their company logo, things that the Unicode would say, not for us, that, you know, doesn't have enough global relevancy. And so I think it's to meet that demand, it's possibly font technology could get us there, but I actually think there's some platform level support that needs to happen. Emoji.
Just a comment in relation to that. When emoji were first added into Unicode, the expectation and intent among all of the companies that were involved in Unicode at the time in doing that was that we're only doing this because it's kind of imposed on us by global carriers in Japan, and going forward, what we really think is needed is some way for end users to interchange their own little images. We don't want to add a lot of more emoji because it doesn't scale very well for Unicode to be involved in that.
I think we're returning a little bit back to the 90s in that way, right? Until Slack and Discord and whoever say, we actually want our Slack emojis to work in other environments, there's no reason for a platform to create a mechanism so that they can interoperate. And right now, apps are so focused on their space and getting people there and never leaving, there isn't an incentive. So I think more increasingly, as people use emoji more, as they rely on them more and more, as when they're not there, that disappointment of not seeing it, that is more of a, you know, user demand perspective, but I think fundamentally from like making the internet a better place perspective, it's just history repeating itself. You know, you really do need the apps to say, we want it to work in other places, even if it means they're not using our app. That's a much harder sell.
We have time for one more question.
Good, because that was a real bummer way to end it. Yes. That can kind of be traced back to this idea of like, what are people looking at it when they first see it? And some people just look at the eyes, other people looking at the mouth. So when you see pleading face, it has a very distinct frown, which can come off as submissive. Some people would even call it pathetic. Other people might call it not for me. But when you turn it upside down, upside down and then into a smile, then more people, not more people, but a different type of person looks at it and sees a very different expression. So they are distinct. The addition of some eye droplets helps a little bit with its distinctiveness, but like face covering its mouth, eyes open and closed, it's the same thing, but instead of the eyes changing, it's really the mouth.
All right, we are at time, so a big thank you for
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Code.